So I'm starting with making a roux. With some butter, I'm going to throw some onion in here and a little bit of celery. And I really like to finely dice up the onion. And this is the basis, of course, for a lot of soups. Onion, celery, and then in some soups you can do carrot. This soup I'm going to leave the carrot out, but if you like carrots, you could certainly throw that in there. Those are just kind of the, great ways to start a soup. I love soup. Don't have a ton of time to make soup. So I always am trying to come up with ways that, I can make soup in like 20, 30 minutes. So this is a pretty quick one. Some soups take all day to really, have all the flavors come together, and if you're using, tougher cuts of meat, the beef to get tender. But this one is a quick one because we're actually using leftover corned beef, or you can just go to the deli and pick up some corned beef, which they have this time of year. I know Festival Foods gave us some beautiful corned beef that we're going to use in this. The salt and pepper, it's real important to, when you're making soups, season as you go. Not just throw some salt and pepper at the very end. But I'm not going to put a ton of salt in here because corned beef is naturally salty, and we're using a whole ton of Swiss cheese, which is really going to give this soup some great flavor. That onion just didn't want to get in that pan. So Ann, did the two dogs do okay? Ann's got a dog, Goo, who's little, and then there's Levi, the 100-pound chocolate lab. And Ann was telling me a great story how Levi's, a senior. You've heard me talk about him on the show before. He's a grandpa, and about 14, slowing down quite a bit. And Goo is, how old's Goo? 5, but going on 2. Really spunky and loves the ball. And it's this little cutest dog ever. Loves, it's a ball dog. So Goo pretty much gets it that Levi just likes to hang out and, but was trying, so threw the ball at Levi. Levi looked up and was like, not happening, but good try. Too funny. I guess it bounced on his head, so Ann was telling me about that story. So we had 4 tablespoons of butter, 5 tablespoons of butter, and I'm doing 4 tablespoons of flour, and this is going to create a really nice, thick soup. When you add your flour in here, it's important to really incorporate it, get it cooked a little bit, but it can tend to burn. It's a lot of flour, so you really got to keep it moving. This is one of those soups that you really can't walk away and let it simmer for a long time. You got to be there and babysit it. After you go through all the trouble, you don't want to burn this. That ruins the whole batch, and that is no fun at all. So there we go. Before we start putting in the other ingredients, I like to just cook that for a little bit, get a whisk out, just to really make sure it's combined. Okay, now we're going to start adding the rest of the ingredients. We're going to do some chicken stock. You could also do vegetable stock. And you can do milk or heavy cream. Up to you what you want to do. Or, excuse me, half and half, I should say. Half and half is going to be a little more rich, a little more thick. But this soup has so much great flavor going on, a lot of cheese and wonderfulness, so you could certainly just use milk if you wanted. So my son Riley, who goes to St. Norbert's on spring break this week, so he went along with us to the dance competition. Pretty much most of it he was okay. Toward the end, we find him sound asleep in the auditorium. And if you've ever been to one of these dance competitions, they're long, there's tons of dancers, and it does happen. So anyway, we have to nudge him whenever Ireland was going to go on. That's your sister. But we were pretty proud of him that he went along, especially a college student on his spring break. And yes, Ann said, did you feed him? Yeah, that's probably one of the reasons he did go along, is that he was craving some good food. Okay, not that their food there is fantastic. I'd go eat there. Okay, so I've combined my milk, or your half and half, with your chicken stock, and at this point I'm just waiting for this to come to a boil and thicken. And I've got, as I mentioned, some really wonderful sliced corned beef. Or just take your leftover corned beef and cabbage, and you can shred it up, you can chunk it up, you just want it in little pieces. One of the things I like to do is we tend to, if we don't eat it all, and then we turn it into Reubens, and then we turn it into a Reuben dip I make, and then maybe you've got some corned beef that you're corned beefed out, I guess is what I'm trying to say, toward the end, after a few days of eating it. And you kind of get a little tired of it. Corned beef freezes really well, so you can actually, wrap it real well, any of the leftovers you have, and get it in the freezer for a good 3 months or so. So then when you're craving your Reuben and want to make Reuben soup like this, just get out of the freezer and use it then. I just want to put this in little pieces though, because it is going to be a soup. I've got some other ingredients that are really going to give the soup some great flavor. There's not a lot, this is bland right now, so it really needs some great flavor. One of the things I'm going to do is do a little bit of ketchup. Now this sounds really weird, but ketchup is what is in Thousand Island dressing, which is what's on a Reuben. So we're going to do about a tablespoon or two. I'm just kind of eyeballing it, and I was trying to think of ingredients that you already had on hand so you wouldn't have to go out to a little bit more and get, buy or make Thousand Island dressing. Something I also have in my pantry or in my fridge is I love dill pickles. So you can just chop up some dill pickle, or if you have dill pickle relish. And so again, that's something that you'll find in the dressing that's on Reuben sandwiches. So I'm just waiting for this to thicken, and we're just about there. Now I love to serve this with some wonderful rye bread that you can pick up at the bakery. They've got great rye bread, especially this time of year at Festival Foods, all sorts of great Irish stuff. Or you can take the rye bread and chunk it up and saute it in a little butter, or brush it with olive oil in little pieces and make homemade croutons. That's really, really wonderful. But if you want to cheat and keep it really nice and easy, these are just these rye crisps, party crisps that we picked up at Festival. Instead of serving this with crackers, I thought that would be a really fun thing to serve this with. So this is going to start simmering. I can start seeing it do that right now. And at this point, I want to start adding in my cheese and my sauerkraut. So we're going to do, this is just about a cup of drained sauerkraut. We're going to add our corned beef in here. And isn't your dad a big fan of Reubens?
Yep.
I knew it. And Greg, all right, Greg, our director. I know, I love a good Reuben sandwich, I really do. And now we're going to start adding the cheese. Now, you need to be a little careful when it comes to adding cheese. This is getting thick and wonderful. I'm getting excited about it. And so I like to add, we've got Swiss cheese that we're going to add about a handful at a time, so it doesn't separate. So basically I add my shredded Swiss cheese is the best thing to use because it's going to melt right away. Whisk it in there. More shredded Swiss cheese. Just whenever I'm making like a beer cheese soup or any kind of a cheese soup, cheese fondue, it's really best to add it a handful at a time, whisk it in there, and then rather than dump it all in right away. Ooh, look at that, it's getting cheesy and yummy, and then we'll also save a little bit of cheese for the top. Okay. All right, I think it's time for soup. See how quick and easy this is? Okay, we started, it's hasn't even been 12 minutes, so it's that quick that you can throw the soup together. If it gets a little thick, add a little more milk or a little more chicken stock, but this looks absolutely perfect. It's supposed to be really thick, ooey gooey, and cheesy. And I've got a nice bowl here. This is a tradition in our house. After the corned beef on St. Patty's Day, a couple days later, I make a big batch of this, and
Your kids eat sauerkraut?
It's just yummy. Ann said, did the kids eat sauerkraut? No, they're not big fans, but Bob and I happen to love it. And it was one of those things where they love corned beef, though. The kids love corned beef. And Ireland likes cabbage. Riley likes the potatoes. But I never did like sauerkraut. And now all of a sudden I can't get enough of it. I think that means I'm getting old. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but anyway, love, love, love it. So there you go. It's my Reuben soup. Recipes on the website. You can also pick it up at any area Festival Foods.